Title: You're at a job interview. You get the "What is your biggest weakness?" question. What is your answer? I'm terrible at interviews, got me my job. You're a genius, WTF. How come I never thought of that? I'm going to try that, but I feel like they'd say haha no, but seriously though, my current job, I said. That's a pretty tough question for me. I like to work on something when someone points it out as a weakness, so I don't tend to have a really strong weakness that I notice. Can we come back to this question and I'll think on it in the meantime? Either he liked that answer enough or just forgot to ask again because we didn't go back. Edit. And for anyone wondering, I was just hoping to remember what I had googled the day before. My real weakness is going to be being a semi-perfectionist, which sounds like a canned answer. I'll sometimes spend too long trying to make something perfect when it doesn't have to be. You used the interview to win the interview. This is my go-to answer as well. I thought about saying that, but it seemed like a bad idea. I have legit done this. Backstory: I got declined 3 jobs. I struggle with shitty interview questions. Probably wouldn't have got you the job though. This is an awesome line, especially if you aced the interview. I hate cliché interview questions. Did not get me your job. This might only be applicable to someone newly out of college or applying for entry-level jobs, but I had a professor tell me to say lack of experience. If you're applying for an intro-level job, it's expected. It's a weakness that's not really your fault, and you can spin it as a reason you should get the job. I do this. I always say, well, since I'm still a student, lack of practical experience in this field. Most of my knowledge is theoretical from class, however I am excited/motivated to apply what I learned in class to the real world. Always something that can be turned into a positive, smiley face. Actually, this could be applicable to every job that doesn't fit anything you did before. For example, as a programmer, I might have 5 years experience, but I never worked on framework X or with language Y. You need to follow up with what you're doing about that lack of experience though. Don't leave it at that. It's not about answering what your weakness is, it's about how you proactively manage yourself and what you do to improve. I said this once, but then the interviewer said that it's not a weakness. I was like, alright, I guess I failed this interview then. Gonna use this. Genius literally wrote this down. Thank you. When I was looking for my first job and doing interviews for no/2Y experience, this answer received consistently great feedback as humble and honest. You need to plan and think ahead though. One good answer is not going to get you a job. Speaking as a hiring manager, this is a fantastic answer, because it tells me that you're aware of it, too. I've seen a lot of engineers straight out of university or a couple years out that think they know everything, and it's the ones who know they don't that learn and contribute the fastest. I suspect this transfers to other fields very well too. I just hired a 19-year-old that said this, and I've got high hopes for him. My company is big on training, and I liked that he was honest that this would only be his second job and he realized he had a lot to learn. Lack of experience. But it can also be great for you guys in that I haven't developed any bad habits, so you're able to imprint upon me a style that your business requires without having things done differently than any way you want. Can always try and spin a weakness into a unique opportunity for who's looking to hire you. My answer to that question at the local ice cream parlor was, my biggest weakness is chocolate. I got the job. And a free scoop of chocolate ice cream every day I worked there. My old roommate tried that for a desk job once. She said the interviewer gave her a blank stare, quietly wrote something down, then continued with the interview. She didn't get the job. How much weight did you gain? That's the best. The year is 2015 and I'm interviewing for my first job at an unnamed game studio. I'm super nervous. I did the pre-interview tests and they liked them. And I get the question. I get really nervous and I talk a lot and ramble. It's pretty much word vomit until my brain catches up with my mouth, until I catch up with what I just said, and most of the time I can't really remember the question. It got a lot of laughs in the room, but I really couldn't remember at the time what the director just asked me. Did they ever name the game studio? Bet you sounded like USDA prime fresh meat for the grinder. Honest answer followed by how you're improving. I tend to procrastinate, but I keep that at bay by sticking to a to-do list, etc. My last job had very vague to-do lists. They were pretty much the same thing every shift. Stock X department, check dates, rotate stock, fill balloon corral, etc. So in an interview I just used that as an example for staying on task. Then they hit me with, well, how do you make sure you do things on your list? My dumb ass was like, I'm not really sure what you're asking. Just do it. Yup, this is exactly what I do. I usually say I tend to become apathetic towards monotonous work, but I know it's a flaw that I carry and I know how to push myself past that feeling when it comes around. I've yet to fail a job interview. Edit, hey cool, first silver. Thanks. I'm close to batting 1.000 in corporate interviews, and this is the best answer, especially if it's honest. Complement it by speaking to past weaknesses and how you turned them into strengths. My biggest weakness is crippling dyslexia, and there's nothing I can do to fix it other than doing everything at a glacial pace, multiple times, and even then it will probably still be wrong somewhere when I'm done. I don't think I should tell anyone this. My most recent interview I did actually include that question. I told them I tend to have a problem with hyper-focusing on things sometimes to the point of missing out on the big picture, or taking a bit long on calls. I told them I've been working on that with the help of physical reminders, alarms, etc., and they seemed to appreciate it. My now current boss also liked when I answered the question, what if someone asks you a question you don't know the answer to? I say, boy, that's a great question, I don't know offhand but I will find the answer for you, and then Google my little heart out. Apparently she loved that I admitted I don't know everything, but that I know how to find answers and am willing to learn. Yup, I used going out of my comfort zone followed by I'm trying to improve by doing things I wouldn't otherwise do a year ago, such as this interview. Called me the same day to offer me the position. But turns out they hired me because I mentioned my sister sent me the job post, and apparently they work with my sister sometimes and figured I'm just as good as her. Now I'm constantly stressed I'm gonna fuck up bad. Similar. I tend to juggle too many tasks at once, so I make frequent to-do lists and number each task by order of importance, then try to check one thing off at a time. Otherwise, I might spread myself thin. I usually approach it honestly. I'm super hard on myself to the point that it can be counterproductive. So I typically don't need a lot of coaching when I fuck up, but I need to be reminded to move on. Up. I work with a company who loved that about me. Then 3 years into training they decided to switch gears into quantity over quality, and it's really fucked me up. Either my crippling alcoholism or penchant for theft, but I'm working on it, heek. The problem with kleptomaniacs is that they always take things literally. My last boss told me that I'm condescending and that it's a huge area I need to work on. That means I talk down to people. It's a version of a Bob Newhart joke. I don't like country music, but I don't mean to denigrate those who do. And for the people who like country music, denigrate means put down. Arguing with my GF one time, and she said I was being condescending, and I said she doesn't even know what that word means. Downvoted this, scrolled down, did a double take and came back to upvote. Clever. I had an employee tell me that I was arrogant and condescending. I said, am I? Am I? Let me tell you why you are wrong. They didn't think it was as funny as I did. Jimmy Carr would be proud. Line of the day. I'm using this. What show was that on? Can't place it. In a similar vein, my boss told me that I was arrogant, but that can't be, because arrogance is beneath me. Honesty. I don't think that's really a weakness. I don't give a shit what you think. Well, that is certainly refreshing to hear. Hear it, This chair is uncomfortable, she smells, and that comb over of yours is not fooling anyone. I was here to see this one. You start Monday, it's that thinking there that keeps me from being promoted, haha. This is gold. Legit had a friend growing up that was exactly like this, could not keep his mouth shut about something, almost everyone hated it and he lost several girlfriends and jobs because of it. I liked it because he was the one person that would tell me I had crumbs on my face or the clothes I was wearing looked dumb on me. Gave this as an answer once. Although when told it's not really a weakness, I rephrased, saying I can be brutally honest. The INTE viewer was laughing. Well, I'd say my weakness is the cause of me getting fired from my last 8 jobs. I bring in too many turtles apparently. I don't know how many the right amount of turtles is because I've brought anywhere from 50 up to 300. It seems unreasonable to bring less than 50, so I just don't get it. I would be honest during my interview about how many turtles I plan to bring to work with me and let loose in the facility, but they never ask. What about you guys? How many turtles do you guys bring to not get fired? I typically bring only around 25, but every place is different. Up to 300. Honestly, I think the problem is you're not bringing in enough turtles. I worked at one place that was an absolute nightmare. I could only bring 1 turtle at a time. But my current job limits me to the amount I can carry, which is nice. Are you the zombie kid? This is the man I have chosen to spend my life with. Oh really? Well, we have a number of birthday packages. The pewter package has the least amount of goats, not no goats, it's still 10 to 12 goats, depending on the availability of the goats. Now the goat package obviously has the most goats. What were you thinking? That's so stupid and funny. Why doesn't every place have a workplace turtle? Just chillin' there with the receptionist, eating lettuce, slowly walking around the lobby, hiding in his shell when people come in the door. I wish I had gold to give you. WTF am I reading? Imagine taking in toads instead of turtles. That would be gross. Might be able to convince the office retard to lick one and get high though, because I've brought anywhere from 50 up to 300. Slacker. Mine must be a regional thing, but I always bring 75 geckos to work. Never heard of anyone bring in turtles. Where do you live? I like to bring 5 at all times, but only if they're massive turtles. Why not bring a handful to interviews to test the waters? 4. I bring in 4. It's turtles all the way down. There's no such thing as too much cowbell. You only need 4 if you also bring 1 rat. I said 1,000, but it was for a Chinese restaurant specializing in some sort of soup. They were very happy to have me. I think by this post alone, you now have people looking at turtles as a possible currency. Did you do random samples between 50 and 300, or did you test every number? The reason I ask is because I tried 62 at my last job and ended up quitting instead of getting fired, and I stuck with 62 at my current job and it's been 9 months without an issue. I don't want to speak too soon, but 62 seems like the ideal number to me. My girl's professor took a turtle to class and she didn't get fired, so I think it depends on your municipal laws. 300? That seems excessive to me. I mean, how many can one guy eat? Interviewer, what is your greatest weakness? Me, answering the semantics of a question while ignoring the pragmatics provided by the context. Interviewer, interesting. Could you give me an example? Me, yes. For the linguistic use of the word pragmatics, I award you a DUT. Hey, you and I are the same kind of smart ass. This is actually something I really struggle with, mostly when I hear a dumb question. The back of my neck is extremely sensitive. If someone were to grab me by my neck and dig their nails in, I'd most likely pass out, therefore making it easier for someone to steal items. What? SCP-173 has breached containment. Thanks for coming in for an interview. Don't call us, we'll call you. Terrified at public speaking is usually the one I go with. It's fairly relatable but easy to brush off by saying I get past it through practice. It also has the benefit of being true. It's socially acceptable to be bad at public speaking. You don't do it enough. Best answer. Imo. Totally agree with this one, and usually it's not even a necessary requirement of most jobs, unless you're regularly addressing a group of people like an educator or trainer, so it works. Confidence. Need to stop second-guessing myself and realize that I'm good. This is mine too. My former bosses always had to reassure me. Priapism, people don't like to work alongside me. But I'm excellent at leading from the front and pointing the way forward. 4 hours does seem like a bit much or in front of you. At least you'll always be working hard. Hand them a quality business card that says I over-prepare. That says you work at the place you're applying to. That subtle off-white coloring I have a solid management background. I always tell them that I am bad at delegating. I prefer to do it myself so I know it gets done right and on time. That it is hard for me to trust other co-workers at first. That answer seems to work so far. I know it's an honest answer and I appreciate that, but it would be a red flag for me as an interviewer. Delegating is just such a huge part of being a good manager. First step, trust but verify. Next step, trust and expect good work. Final step, trust that you have trained them well. It's always on you unless they fail steps 1 or 2, and even then, it may still be you. Ugh, I just completely lost a job opportunity because I gave this answer. They say to apply for management later when I have figured out delegating. The guy who got the job just loudly proclaimed in a meeting yesterday that he always thought worms were mammals. But I was apparently unworthy of the position. Maddening. The problem with this answer could also indicate a problem with micromanaging of staff, that you don't trust them enough to do their jobs. That you don't want them to improve their skills set. Micromanaging managers create a workforce that is not motivated to excel, to learn, or want to improve their productivity or practices, lower staff retention rates. Don't be a micromanager. Only good if you are not applying for a management position and the interviewers don't want someone who can threaten their positions. In my experience as a manager, if you say something like this you'll be disqualified for the position faster than a owl shits even though you're more qualified and better suited for the job than whoever is hired. My usual go-to is that I have had difficulty with taking criticisms personally, especially against me when in a leadership role. I then follow up with talking about how I'm working on it and feel I've improved as I've taken on roles with more responsibility. It is an annoying question, but if you can find something to talk about honestly, and also explain how you are working to improve it, you're golden. This is my answer as well. Shows you care about your work without saying the cliché I care too much or I work too hard. I have difficulty taking criticisms personally. Sounds like something you might want to work on. You know what? Fuck you wooden stakes to the heart. Not that I'm a vampire, I'm just pretty sure that would kill B. To be fair, not many things can survive a wooden stake to the heart. Also wooden stakes would do the same. The obvious ones are those I'm a perfectionist, I suppose, it's one of my biggest weaknesses. But they are so cheesy and BS. The best is just being honest. My biggest weakness. I'm a fat mofo and if anyone leaves food on my desk it's getting eaten, no questions asked. I used this in a job interview before. I knew that it's a cliché response, but it seemed to go over well, maybe because I genuinely meant it. It was for a bookstore job, and I explained that if I'm supposed to just straighten a section but I notice that it's not alphabetized, there are books from a different section there, etc. I'm going to have a hard time just straightening the books visually and moving on. I'll want to put them in the proper spots, dust, etc., which is a real problem when time is of the essence. I did get the job, though, and one of my favorite tasks was zone maintenance, scanning each item, straightening, dusting, making sure the signs and shelf labels were accurate. It was very satisfying for a type A person like me. Plus I got to see our products and get gift ideas. I'm not sure if my biggest weakness is that I'm a perfectionist or a workaholic. The obvious ones are those. I'm a perfectionist, I suppose, it's one of my biggest weaknesses. Seriously, don't ever do this. If an interviewer asks you about your weaknesses, they want to know about your weaknesses. If I wanted to know what your strengths were, I would just ask you. Treat your interviewer with professionalism and respect. No employee is perfect and the only way for someone to grow and improve over time is to recognize where they are weak. If I ask you about your weaknesses and you give me some non-answer, how can I be confident that you'll be honest and transparent with me if I hire you? You're also probably being interviewed to join a team. Teams are diverse and they have members who are strong at some things and weak at others. When I ask you about your strengths and weaknesses, I might just be trying to figure out how you complement the already existing strengths and weaknesses of the team. Y'all are teaching me so much. I did not know interviewers didn't want to hear this kind of thing. I thought you were supposed to say something that isn't really a weakness. I 100% said I'm a perfectionist, so sometimes it can take me a while to pump out projects because I spend a lot of time on the details. Poor penmanship and swearing too much are my go-tos. Hiring managers usually get a chuckle out of it. If you're applying for a position in a daycare center, the swearing can be ignored but not the poor penmanship. I can't write for shit, and I swear like a fucking sailor. You would fit right in trade work. No cunt can write anything legibly, and if a sentence doesn't have a fuck or cunt in it, it's not worth saying. Just don't be a precious cunt and not take as good as you can give. Hell, I'd hire you. Hell, I am you. My biggest weakness is performing X skill, that is not involved in this job. I realized that my strengths lie elsewhere, which is why I have applied for jobs in this industry, that utilize my strengths instead of weaknesses. For me, I say I have performed poorly in jobs that require physical labor, and so I've specifically chosen to strengthen my resume in areas outside of physical labor. You could do that with anything. I'm not good at dealing at sales when I don't believe in the product. So, I'm applying here because I do believe in this product. Etc. Frame your weakness as something that doesn't matter to this job. Don't do this. The interviewer will see right through it and it'll just look like you're bullshitting. Because you are. It's okay to have weaknesses. This question determines if you're humble enough to admit that you aren't superhuman. I have this glowing blue eye right in the middle of my forehead that I open every 30 seconds. 5 arrows through it knock me right out. Why do you ask? Bullets. Both the gun kind and I use too many in PowerPoint presentations. Asterisk, they are called bullet points. Asterisk, bullet points are not the same as bullets. Asterisk, you can never use too many bullet points in PowerPoint presentations. Seat sniffing. Don't worry, it's not creepy. It's actually a huge compliment. Yes, officer, this comment right here, Jeff? Thanks, I hate it. Honestly, interviews. I've got a great work ethic, and am a petty quick learner, but my interview skills are pretty lacking. I don't let people walk over me, so I assume that's gonna be a problem for you guys. So I don't think you're fit for the job. Not letting you F-curs tell me if I'm fit for a job. I'll see you guys Monday. Strength. Strength is my weakness. How is strength my weakness? And cake? I can't change my own diaper username. Checks out. I'm too humble. Perhaps the most humble person on the planet. Relax, Donald. Kryptonite. They're expecting kryptonite as an answer. A better answer would be nice try. Did Luther put you up to this? Brainiac. Dark side. I can't stand to FLYYYYYYYYYYYYYYY shitting in public restrooms. Shitting me, I can be very vague. Interviewer, care to elaborate? Me, yet. I sing in the shower. Sometimes I spend too much time volunteering. Occasionally I'll hit somebody with my car. I work too hard. I care too much. And sometimes I can be too invested in my job. How would I describe myself? 3 words. Hardworking, alpha male. Jackhammer. Merciless. Insatiable. I see what you did there, Mr. Scott. Maybe if you apply for a job at Kraft, because that was a cheesy answer. I think any interviewer with sense will hate this answer. When I interview people and they do this, I immediately follow up with, okay, now tell me an actual weakness. My weaknesses are actually strengths. You say I don't have a weakness. They're either impressed by your confidence and boldness or you're laughed out of the room. I usually say that I've been told I work too quickly, but I'm learning to strike a balance between working quickly and reducing errors. Pistachios. I go with an honest answer that most recruiters can relate to. I say something along the lines of the fact that when I'm not busy I tend to get very bored and distracted and my levels of productivity go way down. Interviewer, what is your biggest weakness? Me, I have no weakness. No vulnerability. I am the all. No man can best me. No woman can resist me. My power is absolute. I am what the night fears and the sun flees each day. To look upon me is to know your inevitable demise. At the end of time I will cry tears of burning oil and open my 1,000 mouths and herald the end of all that is. When nothing is left I will lord over the darkness and ash of all that was and all that will be. That you would imply that I am not everything that encompasses the reality you can see, and the realities behind the veils of your sanity tells me that you will be the first to be consumed in the blood and shadows that hide behind this world. Look upon my true form and know death, but if I had to pick I'd say that I have some difficulty with adding pictures to a Word document. Interviewer, now just a soul bound to the blasted and charred skeleton and existing on the line between life and death, and in eternal agony I think that's all the questions I have, we'll let you know when we've made a decision. Me, wonderful, I'll look forward to hearing from you. Always saying yes to overtime, that's not a weakness. Oh, but I never show up. I have a strong desire to make sure that things are done and done correctly. Unfortunately, at times that has led me to be distracted and concerned with things that other employees or my subordinates are responsible for. It's been part of my growth as a supervisor to trust that my employees can perform their jobs properly and verify that they are doing it, instead of hovering or doing it for them. If I'm being honest, I've been told by a momager that I don't handle what I deem to be stupid people or stupid questions very well. But I wouldn't admit that in an interview because it just means I'm an asshole. Thank you for your time, but I don't believe this is the right fit. Please delete my contact information. I'm a perfectionist to the point of obsession. It's an honest answer that actually eventually drives my supervisors crazy. Sometimes when I'm in a situation that's sort of inauthentic and artificial, I just lean into it a little. I'm not a jerk about it, but I'll do or say something that just highlights the absurdity before I get back on task. I have a low tolerance for lazy and ineffective interview questions. I don't know about you, but I consider my time to be precious. Once it is gone I don't get it back, and I can't believe you are subtracting minutes from my life on such pointless inanities. I'm sure it makes you feel important to imperiously recite the same nonsense you vaguely recall being asked back when you were an oily-faced teen sweating in an ill-fitting suit and a tie that your mother put on for you at your first job interview all those years ago, but the world has moved on and any HR manager worth their salt has taken the time to educate themselves on best practice, or even mediocre practice would be a good start for you, and only asks questions that actually yield useful information about a candidate's ability to self-reflect rather than the same lame rehearsed response about being a reformed perfectionist spouted by every person who has bothered to spend 10 minutes Googling how to job interview. Oh, and I have also had difficulties in the past with spending too much time trying to do every job perfectly. I have been actively working on my prioritization skills and find myself much better at accepting a piece of work as good enough when perfection is not required and other time-critical tasks are required to be completed. Run-on sentences. Run-on sentences are your weakness. For any current science students looking to get jobs after graduating. I said, and employers liked, I never trust myself the first time with calculations and take too much time checking my math for calculating simple things like buffer and sample creation. I'll do the math, but I'll feel like I need to double check and triple check it before I actually weigh out the amount, and it always takes a lot longer than it should. Please don't tell them an actual strictly negative weakness. You're just hurting your interview. The trick is to come up with something like this, where it's a positive trait disguised as a weakness. Having an answer like this, rather than a typical negative like I procrastinate, also shows that you prepared for the interview. I pay too much attention to the small details and may lose track of the bigger picture on one of those tests they make you take prior getting a job that graph your skills. Most of them were beyond average but self-confidence. It was the lowest score of all, almost down to 0. So that's that. I don't do good work when I'm multitasking. Since I know this about myself, when I am managing multiple projects at once, I allot time to concentrate on each separately. Any manager that doesn't have enough people skills or self-awareness to know that everyone is shitty at doing 2 high-level thinking tasks at once is not someone I want to work for. That I can come across as blunt and over-authoritative when providing corrective feedback to someone without regard to their feelings or the circumstances of the situation. I'm in the safety and security department at the warehouse I work at. This exact thing was brought up as a complaint against me by someone in another department. The manager bringing up the complaint was not amused when I replied that someone's feelings aren't relevant when I catch them in the act of doing something incredibly unsafe that could get themselves or someone else seriously injured or killed. I may not personally like all of the people I work with, but that doesn't mean I'm going to let something happen because I'm afraid of upsetting someone's feelings. Answering this question in interviews might get a laugh. Just had an interview. Was honest. Remembering people's names. I think most people can relate to that, too. And I mentioned that I have developed strategies to make sure it doesn't get in the way. Got the job offer. Being poor, but I'm working on improving that by getting this job. Your wife don't say doing your wife don't say doing your wife when I'm sexually aroused. ISTSTST stutter. I'm bad at socializing with co-workers. But that just makes it easier for me to work independently and stay focused. There would be a lot of recruiters that would see that as a huge red flag and suggestive of someone who can't collaborate or pisses people off. It doesn't matter if that's true or not, but it's a bad idea in interview to dangle the negative question. I don't have any weaknesses, but here are a few areas of opportunity that I'm looking forward to achieve. Sounds like you're ready for an HR gig. Coming from my art teacher, it's my overall negative opinion on my artwork and myself in general. It got to a point where she set homework and one of the criteria was to not be too negative. Mine is that I have trouble leaving at the end of the day if there is work unfinished. It's a real problem and shows commitment. You give a weakness that has absolutely no relevancy towards the position you see. If you're going for an office job, tell them you have no mechanical skills. If you're going for a construction job, tell them you can't type. You get the point. I disagree. Give them a problem you have related to the job and how you plan to work on that problem. Happy cake day. But they'll see that as a cop-out. I love facilitating conversation and getting everyone involved. Unfortunately, this can lead to getting off track and not making progress on the project, so when I notice this, I take steps to refocus everyone on the task at hand. I can be too casual when presenting to executives. Chronic procrastination, which I have only begun to fight thanks to timers and alarms. I have very little patience for questions that are designed to force me to act in a way counter to my best interests. I always say names. I'm bad with names but working on getting better. Folding fitted sheets. Interviewer, what's your biggest weakness? Candidate, honesty. Interviewer, I don't think honesty is a weakness. Candidate, I don't give a f sharp at \** what you think. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought this was a serious interview. Then I walk out. And then the interviewers applaud, pull you back into the room, offer you the job. You tell them no way Jose, and walk out again. I try to multitask too many things. I don't like saying no to people because it leaves me feeling like I've let somebody down, even if saying yes means that I'm then totally unable to meet prior obligations. I say yes unless I'm in the foulest of moods. I mean, there's no legit way to turn it around into a positive, beyond saying but I'm getting better at saying no. Edit, I also fully don't trust delegating my workload to anybody. There's a guy who when he sees me stressing always offers to help me out, and I'll look through my list of shit to do and just sorta noncommittally say there's nothing I can pass off. Kryptonite. Actually did that once in an interview for a web company. I'm lazy, I'd rather take a week and fix it so I never have to worry about it again than spend a few hours a week patching it back together from now until I leave. I always answer, my weakness is that I like to solve problems on my own even though I could easily ask a supervisor or someone for help. This makes it look like you're persistent and find solutions on your own without needing help. Anything over 100. Had a guy tell me once in an interview his weakness is cheesecake. We hired him. I expect a lot of myself and I can sometimes get frustrated when the people I work with don't hold themselves to the same standards. But I've learned to be forgiving and coach up, down, and laterally, and I've seen positive results when I engage in that way. I.e., the humble brag. As someone who's been on both ends of interviews plenty of times, I can say just be honest. I'll usually answer multitasking or requiring repetition to master a task, something like that. Giving a solid truthful answer shows you're not some egomaniac, fallible, etc. Do you want the real answer, or the weakness that's actually a strength answer that everyone is supposed to say? It's a stupid question and I refuse to ask it. It's a poorly structured attempt to establish a person's capability for learning and self-reflection. A better way to phrase it would be something like, tell me about the biggest mistake you have made at work. What happened, how did you resolve it, and what did you learn from it? You sound like a good interviewer. Candidate, sometimes I'm too honest. Interviewer, I wouldn't call that a weakness. Candidate, I don't give a fuck what you think. I can be too honest at times. I'm honest and admit that I can be shy. I guess it's good I never tried to get a job working with customers. I don't remember things as well as my CO workers sometimes. I write down a lot of things. Other developers then started relying on the documentation I had created. Lack of experience. I tend to procrastinate with chores around the house at times. I've always used that one. Keeps me from looking like the dirtbag I really am. That's why I doing this online tiramisu. I will eat as much as possible even if it will make me throw up. It's just so fucking good. And you can bribe me to do almost anything with it as well. My penis is so large it gets in the way of walking sometimes. Kryptonite. I'd love to use the Kenny Powers quote, *, so people often ask me, Kenny, what are your weaknesses? Do you have any? I would say that my biggest flaw, my Achilles heel, is my tireless work ethic. The questions is a bit of a trick question. For most people one of their biggest weaknesses is to self-analyze. Hence not recognizing what their biggest weakness actually is. If I'm in an interview, and they ask what my biggest weakness is, if I know about it, I should have either corrected it, or am actively working to correct it. I work too hard. I care too much. And sometimes, I can be too invested in my job. Michael Scott, The Office. Pull a card out of your pocket that has "I over-prepare" written on it. Have a second card in your pocket that says, just these two, in case they ask how many different cards like that you carry around with you. This is not mine but a combo of answers from the last time this question was posted. I was on an interview panel and one of the candidates said their biggest weakness was, I always need to know why I'm doing what I'm doing. Communication. I always tell them sometimes when it gets chaotic I tend to be super alpha and start taking control. Sometimes it can come off as inconsiderate to the idea of teamwork, but sometimes I just like to get the job done. Deadass. Waggles eyebrows. I point out blind spots in my own training. No personality defects or self-aggrandizing fake weaknesses. Asthma. Lack of experience. Kryptonite. Reading. I need to reread a few times to understand fully what's happening. I am still in the middle of managing under pressure, but other than that, I may lose track of time, occasionally. Isema. I use my memory is pretty darn bad, or stuff like I leave post-its a lot of my stuff. I have shit memory and tend to forget stuff a lot. So you can also come back to it when they ask you about what your strong suit is. You adapt and can find solutions to your own problems, like taking a shit ton of notes. Since I started doing interviews with these answers I've always gotten calls back. I swear it sounds better in my native language. Looking at what I've written it doesn't sound good. But it actually is, and shows that you grow and learned how to deal with your flaws. Only your big, beautiful eyes. When I was asked in my last round of job interviews, I just gave honest feedback my manager had given me from my previous job. Sometimes my project proposals, software, are too ambitious to be consumable as a single unit. It's hard to track progress on tasks that are sufficiently big. It would have been useful if I had taken some extra time to break down the projects into smaller chunks so we could track and measure progress more easily. There is a bigger theme here that others in this thread have also mentioned: honesty and integrity. A lot of job interviews are essentially a glorified sales pitch. Either them pitching the position or you pitching your ability to fill it. This question puts the interviewee in a different mindset, in the sense where they need to pick a topic that isn't a sales pitch. It feels like the opposite actually, and talk about it. Nobody is perfect, and this question gives some insight to the interviewer on how you might respond to feeling vulnerable. If you aren't able to admit that you have flaws, then it is likely that you will be challenging to work with. That said, you want to pick something that is relevant and isn't going to scare them off. I struggle to stay organized if I don't write everything down is probably a better conversation topic for a job interview than I have IBS and I spend at least 3 hours a day on the toilet. I usually go on a long spiel about my background and what I've done at work when I first meet them that they never really get to ask me any generic interview questions. I also ask questions during my spiel then respond to their responses, to keep the conversation going. I recently applied to jobs, got 6 responses, 6 interviews, 5 offers and 1 reject just because I ghosted them. I'd say what I've been doing has been working well. I always stick hoodie. I ask a lot of questions and am very detail-oriented. It is truthful but lets them know they can expect flawless work. I did the Myers-Briggs personality test beforehand, just listed off some of the weaknesses. I've been accused of plagiarism before, their words not mine. I tend to micromanage. However, lately I have begun to look at the big picture. This helps me focus and manage my time better. Total bullshit, but I got the very high-paying job, believing I need a job to feel like something. Been waiting to apply. Being such a perfectionist with my work card since I was like 8, can't wait to actually use it someday in a job interview. LOL. Anal. I go for OLE. Reliable. Delegation. Shows that you want things done right, but you sometimes overwhelm yourself to ensure it is. But it's also something that can be improved. Pretty much anything work-related that can be improved is the right answer. My anxiety causes me to overthink some problems. Most of the time it's not intrusive, but sometimes it makes me second-guess my work. That said, a quick second opinion gets me back on track. Other times, it leads to solutions that others haven't thought about or finding ways to better do things around the job. I'm not 100% sure how good of an answer it is, as I haven't gotten a job at any interview that asked. One manager thanked me for my honesty, and I'm not sure what that meant, tbh. Interviews, then proceed to vomit on the interviewer, aggressively. Unfortunately, I'm not able to respond properly because my greatest weakness are weird-ass questions like this. That I quote Star Wars rots at least 5 times a day, not being sarcastic when asked a stupid question. As a manager, I look for how people have either worked on it, or once saying their weakness aloud, come up with an on-the-spot way to tackle it and improve. Shows me if they're capable of self-criticism, reflection, and quick thinking, as well as creating a plan of action. Kryptonite. Get it? Because Superman. My answer was, games and sweets. And so I am able to bring my gaming laptop to work and eat snacks I want. Something cringy. I got the job. Embezzling from my place of employment is not a good answer. Knees. Next question. I've used interviews and honesty. I'd say telling you about my weakness would be my biggest weakness. I was asked that question at my last interview 6 months ago. My answer was the typical, my biggest weakness is also a strength. I tend to get very focused on one thing. I can sometimes focus on things which are pointless, but when I need to get a job done, I'm your guy. I got the job. Edit, spelling cute girls. Sometimes I just completely lose my shit when someone asks me a stupid question and I feel like ripping their head off. I'm getting that feeling now, cake work/life imbalance, getting too focused on work. BC, you're just so passionate. I have a hard time parrying the Black Knights in DS3. Dead serious answer here, I always said my greatest weakness is popcorn. No joke, you put one of those large movie theater tubs of corn in front of me, it will be gone within the half hour. It works, explain it like I did, and they'll probably chuckle and make a comment about it, then they'll likely move on to the next question. It's worked for me before. Best one I ever heard while interviewing applicants was, I have trouble motivating myself to do a task I don't understand the purpose of. I always say that I'm bad at saying no. The best thing a good manager can do for me is to check that I'm not overloading myself out of eagerness to take on cool projects. And it's true. My best directors are always good at holding me to it. I had an out-of-town interview, a decade ago. Before my smartphone. I got majorly turned around at one point and drove a significant time in the wrong direction. Ended up being very late and frazzled. They asked this question, and I replied, apparently it's reading maps. Never answer this question. Rephrase it for them instead. Always respond with the following. An area that I would like to develop is perfectionist. You could totally pass this off as a positive trait as well because it ensures high quality in everything you do. In my case, I'm a software developer. Why do you need to know my weakness? What a dumb question. The only possible reason to know that is so you can use it against me. You're not hiring me based on my weakness, but my strengths. Focus on those. We're not fucking Lex Luthor and Superman. I don't have patience for stupid fucking questions like this one. Next question. Fire and gunshots seem to be a big weakness of mine. Girls with thighs. Before my job interview, I asked my kids how I should answer this. They said I'm an excellent forgetter. FML, I tend to be fairly honest about a professional weakness I have, and then I'll explain what I am doing to grow. In the job I just landed, senior product designer, UX/UI related, when they asked this I explained that sometimes I can't move past a problem and I find myself staring at my computer trying to push pixels endlessly. Not the worst weakness, very common for designers. It also helps them understand how I work, and in most situations that is a valuable insight. We all have flaws, all of us work differently. It would also be okay to present the equal/opposite side to a weakness. Most weaknesses tend to come with a positive. For example, if you are process-driven, you are likely very good at working with developers, in my industry. At the end of the day, a certain level of honesty is appreciated. Authenticity means more to your interview than a canned response. If you show you are working on it, or that it comes with a positive, it can help you sell yourself better. At least that's what has worked for me. My tapeworm. I call him Calvin. Answering this question in a way so you'll give me the job. I've always been pretty honest with this question. My biggest weakness then, and still to this day, is a degree of follow-through. Not in the sense that I won't finish any work that is in my wheelhouse to get done, but I will often have grand ideas and swing them by superiors and they'll think it's a great idea and tell me to get started, and then I don't. And if I do, I don't finish it. I suck at this. I tell them my actual weakness, I use too much time on tiny details and can sometimes get lost in them when I should be focusing on the broader picture. I just really enjoy taking my time and making sure I'm happy with the result. But if you're on a deadline, that might not be so good. Last time I said, I have a weakness for roasted potatoes. At my first editor job I said my weakness was that I'm pretty weak, so no heavy stuff. I ended up getting the job. Under weaknesses, you've put eczema. I overcommit myself till I burn out, so don't ask me to do 40+ hours a week. Peanuts. I have an extreme peanut allergy. Stares awkwardly, not speaking up and saying that the question of what is your biggest weakness is a sign of thinking on your feet with information you're supposed to know because it's your life. However, it provides zero help toward the interview process or how an employee would act if they are put in the spotlight by a customer. Since I would be a new employee and my response would be solely based on the training I get from the company and not from my life experiences. My go-to is my handwriting. Because it's true but means nothing in today's world. I can get stuck in the detail, so use task lists and plan checkpoints to make sure I progress. My biggest weakness is also my biggest strength. My anxiety. The fear consumes me. However, that same fear motivates me to do my best. My biggest weakness is I can think of an inappropriate joke for anything and then say it. I would say that my biggest weakness is that I'm a bit forgetful, but I'm working on it. For example, making little notes and write everything down on my calendar or notebook. Chocolate. Wow, I might think that my biggest weakness would maybe be probably answering questions off the top of my head. Job interviews. LOL, I'm impotent that pineapple on pizza is gross. This works because those that like pineapple on pizza are not people. But pineapple and banana peppers on pizza is fucking awesome. My inability to answer pointless interview questions non-sarcastically. I work too hard. I care too much. And sometimes I can be too invested in my job. Being stabbed in the skull with multiple knives. I'm pretty sure that would kill me. Yo sweetness, and then bust out an MC Hammer dance. And yes, I'm old. I microwave fish women, am I right? Guys? Your daughter. Want to smell my fingers? That doesn't smell like my daughter, you liar. Patience. The boss is my weakness. Kryptonite. Excessive amount of crumbs buried in my keyboard. I can sometimes be a slow starter, but I make up for it in the long run. I have asked this question at an interview, and when people reply, my biggest weakness is that I care too much, I punch them in the face. I'm a total slob in the break room. I can't submit work. I am not proud of food. Kryptonite. Deleted. Ma'am, this is a Wendy's. I'm too A-type for my own good. I get everything done correctly, but to the point where it stresses me out sometimes. I am a perfectionist. Swans. I don't like them. And they don't like me. I've worked at the same place for so long I have no idea what my skills are worth in the market, and everyone tells me that I underestimate myself, but the truth is I'm probably overestimating, so I'm here to see who's right. Chocolate ice cream. I assume that other people observe and think the way I do, and sometimes that not only surprises me, but works against me. But that isn't my answer. My answer is usually that I don't sell myself well and understate my accomplishments. I honestly haven't gotten this question in a while, since all the last employers have asked more behavioral questions like tell me about a time when you had to deal with a problem like ___________. People say I'm very weird with my random air quotes that never make sense, but I just don't see it not being assertive. It's not a big flaw and can actually tell employers you're not likely to fight back or make a fuss. Bad for public-facing roles like teaching or court, though I tell them I'm bad at interviews, which is true and always gets a chuckle. ADH freaking D. Can't lift a ton. I'm a perfectionist. I worked at Ruby Tuesday for a while doing salad bar. I took too long cleaning up each night, so the manager shadowed me. Told me he figured out why it took so long. I was cleaning stuff when I could just rinse it and throw it in a bin, takes a fifth of the time. I left a job once because of a difference in priorities. They cared about speed, I cared about quality. Sometimes I'm too much of a perfectionist, which can cause me to take too long on things. I'm working on that. Answering nebulous questions quickly. Redheads. I don't answer stupid questions. Next. My bladder. Excuse me for a couple minutes. Walks to bathroom to think of an appropriate response. Probably alligators, they're very scary. That I care too much. The scars remind us that the past is real. I tear my heart open just to feel. I'm a perfectionist. I push myself sometimes too hard to the absolute best I can. I'll do what I need to get someone what they asked for to the best of my ability. If I can't do or get what they ask for, I apologize way too much because I genuinely feel bad. Mine was that I get discouraged easily. Kryptonite. Heroin. It's my guilty pleasure. Job interviews. My real weakness that I know I need to work on. I'm too blunt with people when they're being lazy or just a shitbag in the workplace in general. Left over from my time in the army where you just spoke plainly and called out people's bullshit. I know I need to work on being more diplomatic / having more tact, even if it is deserved. My answer in a job interview? I'm very detail-oriented and sometimes have to remind myself to take a step back and look at the big picture. Communication. I spend far too much time worrying about delivery or word choice that communication is often slow or ill-timed. Followed by what I do to help myself with this shortcoming: I like to urinate into the kettle, then watch as someone boils it. Steaming hot piss frothing out of the top of the kettle every time. Bullets. Karen, while being the manager, sometimes it takes me too long to make a decision. I tend to think in all the possible outcomes. It's the best way I've found to say my anxiety is killing me. Social anxiety is my biggest weakness, one which I constantly have to fight against. I hate showing up for work. I can't swim. My biggest weakness is probably when something hilarious happens and I'm trying not to laugh. I'd tbh your eyes and then I lean in for the kiss. My inability to work poorly: I have always been the yes man. I tend to knowingly take on more than I can handle on my own because I thrive being able to help people. I'm working on it by scheduling my day-to-day better and honing my time management skills in order to help me better serve those I work with. Communication. I sometimes have problems with asking for help. Garlic and holy water carbs. My answer was I'm too hard of a worker, which was totally genuine. And I explained that I have a bad habit of giving myself too many duties and ultimately burning myself out. Bullets. I either over-communicate or under-communicate. There's really no common ground. It depends on what the job is that I need to do and the manager as to whether that's good or bad. You can leave me alone for days with the authority to do whatever I need to do, within good reason, to protect the business and its reputation and staff, and I can handle that. But if I have to answer to someone and I have to get permission, I will check in so much with status updates that you get sick of me. I'm mostly the authority figure. That is why I'm taking you job. I'm too honest for my own good. Attention to details. I can be a bit sarcastic and I tend to mumble a lot, like Boomhauer from King of the Hill. Not applicable. I work too hard, I care too much, and sometimes I can be too invested in my job. Michael Scott. I don't like people. I basically arrange my job so that I have to deal with people as little as possible. It works out pretty well. I manage software that monitors risk on a $40 billion loan portfolio. My biggest weakness is probably questions like this. I have a terrible lying problem. Karate chop to the throat. I'm too humble. I'm suicidal. Guns. I'm quiet and don't talk much. At first used to be mine. I think I might change it to I often show up too early. Masturbating in the bathroom. I'm unemployed but honest. The key to this question is to say an actual weakness and then in the same sentence make it a strength. For example, my biggest weakness is I am often awful at giving sales pitches. However, I believe that's why to do my previous job so well I had to learn to listen to the customer and find out what they want to complete sales. Doing this kinda throws the question back at them while making you look more impressive. Cheese. I love cheese. It makes my knees weak. I smile towards everyone. Please give any awards at a board interview. They asked me this. I told them my biggest weakness is one that I'm conquering right now: fear to take chances and risk failure. But I'm taking a huge chance today, and refusing to let myself consider failure. I got the job.